I want to say to the people of Victoria that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't do something sooner. I swore to protect you and I failed. I'm trying my best to make up for that. I'm prepared to give my life in pursuit of that forgiveness.
Melbourne, Australia. Named the world's most livable city 7 times. Sporting capital of the world. Cultural capital of Australia. A beautiful place to walk or run. Melbourne, my home.
Before COVID, Melbourne was the place to be. It had amazing nightlife, amazing cafes, beautiful beaches.
Melbourne was home. Melbourne's where I've grown up. Melbourne's the city that I've always loved.
I had hopes and dreams and creating a life with my partner, plans for my future, just like anybody else.
Myself included, many people from Eastern Europe, many people from Latin America, many people from Asia were seeing Australia as a home that they can go and realize their new life in.
It was a place full of culture, full of richness, full of art, full of people, feeling connected. There was everything.
It kind of ticked every single box until COVID.
Staff at Wuhan Hospital are working around the clock to identify a mystery virus.
This is the suspected source of the virus, a wholesale seafood market in Wuhan.
The number of people who have died from a new type of respiratory virus in China has now passed 40.
Do not travel to all of mainland China.
I first became aware of COVID when I saw on the news images of people laying in the streets of China, seizuring.
And being carted away. And so, of course, it frightened me, as it frightened everybody.
I was doing a part-time job at the time, and one girl started wearing a mask to and from work in the train. And I was like, that's strange. And I just thought it would go away, but then it didn't.
These things come around every 3 or 4 years: SARS, MERS, bird flu, swine flu. 9 times out of 10 they blow over. It's nothing. 1 time out of 10 you'll get a Spanish flu or you'll get an AIDS.
Victoria will be in lockdown within the next 48 hours.
We are declaring a state of emergency in Victoria. These are not designed to have 0 new cases. In effect, nothing we do can deliver that outcome. This is about, as everything we're doing, is about flattening the curve.
And they said, we need 2 weeks to make sure that we can get this under control. I and many others thought, okay, all right, we'll do the 2 weeks. We'll do the hard yards for 2 weeks and we'll get through it and that'll be that.
I was one of the people who actually pushed for an early lockdown, like 4-week lockdown in March or in April.
I was one of those people that went, okay, well, we'll go by those rules. Mum and Dad, you can't come over. We've got to be really careful.
Okay, 14 days to flatten the curve while we prepare the health system. That's fair enough, and I was willing to. I don't think I barely left the house, and I followed all the rules.
We, like most other people, bought the original line that was, look, they need to buy some time to gear up the hospital system for the influx of patients.
I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to be concerned about. I am not against trying to protect the medical system. Let's just see what happens.
I agree. So much was unknown and what they were asking us to do made sense. But 2 weeks turned into just a little bit more and flatten the curve turned into COVID 0. And we soon found ourselves in a very strange place.
Can we get to 0 that is to say, can we get to a very low number, and hopefully none that we're out in the community, that is still absolutely doable. This thing, because it moves so fast, it's either lock it down and get the cases down to zero or close to it.
Now, when levels are relatively low, is a point where we can totally flatten that curve.
As time goes, the changing narrative from Daniel Andrews, the censorship about people not talking, not discussing the effect of the lockdown, I came to actually have a different perspective about Daniel Andrews.
It seemed that the effects of the virus were nowhere near as bad as we were told it was going to be.
Any data that would arrive or be available to people that didn't suit the narrative that was being presented was completely ignored. That just sowed deeper seeds of mistrust.
What they were saying was very contradictory to what was actually the truth, especially the survival rates and the degree to which they were exaggerating how much it was harming people.
And the first red flag for me was the moment the state of emergency was declared, because I went and read what it meant. They can enter my house, they can arrest me without a warrant. That can't be true in a democracy.
It was unclear what the future was going to hold for anyone, and that's, I guess, where the fear began.
Is there an opportunity to be free and open with 20, 30, 50, 100 cases a day? All the doctors tell us no, and therefore we have no choice but to follow advice that says we need to go harder and we need to go longer. There is no alternative for us but to listen to our public health experts, take their advice.
He wouldn't show us the science, only the opinions of his hand-picked advisors. The opinion of a scientist isn't science. The data behind that opinion is where the science lies, and we were never allowed to see it.
Because they weren't showing the science and the underlying workings and these human rights assessments and things like this, they had to sort of evolve it into like an almost faith system where people have to, trust the experts, trust the health advice.
The lack of transparency created a question mark, and so Australians, naturally, we had to fill in the blanks to those questions because we just weren't getting them from the media, and that's really how you create a divide in the first place. Confusion is the ultimate weapon of control.
He's done an excellent job at leading people to divide one another. He's done an excellent job of leading people to turn into snitches, to ostracise anyone that doesn't go along with his narrative.
If the house 4 doors down from you's got half a dozen cars out the front, or your next door neighbour's making, it's clear they're having people over, well then they're not doing the right thing by you. They're not doing the right thing by anyone.
We kept being continuously treated as though we were doing something wrong despite complying. And this is where the divide really started to sink in because we couldn't comply our way out of this.
I think that it's fair to say, and all of us will know people in our own circles, in our own lives, who are potentially not necessarily following the rules. It's selfish. They are shitty choices.
They weren't scared of a virus, they were becoming scared of each other. They were becoming frightened of, is this person wearing a mask? Is that person staying at home? Everyone was watching what other people around them were doing, and it wasn't out of curiosity, it was out of fear, and it was causing huge amounts of division.
It's hard to come to any other conclusion that what he's done has been a deliberate and calculated move.
This is a lockdown. It will be enforced. It's for the best of reasons and the best of purposes, and that is to bring these case numbers down. You won't be able to go to the pub because the pub is shut. That doesn't mean you can have all your mates round to home and get on the beers where a group of people, a dozen or so, went to a dinner party. As best we can tell, the dinner party started with one person who had the coronavirus. By the end of the dinner party, almost everybody at the dinner party had the coronavirus.
What happens when the rules are changing so often? You have to turn on the TV, you have to watch Daniel Andrews speak to find out, do I have to wear a mask today?
You need to wear them, and you need to wear them properly. Will they be with us forever? No. Exercise is just that. It's not an opportunity for 7 families to catch up in the park. It's exercise. So it's you and one other person from your household or dependents. When it comes to shopping, one person goes out once a day and stays close to home within 5 k's.
This has been the most insipid and diabolical game of Simon Says I think I've ever seen in my life. Take your mask off, put it back on.
People had lost complete control and they were just hanging on to the words of those in leadership.
Stay inside, go back outside.
The more we complied, the more confusing it got, because these rules would shift. There was no consistency, and this so-called health advice was ever-changing, with no transparency on what the basis was to begin with.
Don't visit mum, go and visit mum. There's been, shut your business down, open it back up, but only for 10 people.
I went to see a young bloke, 18 years old, living in a house by himself. His exact words were, "These fucking goalposts have rocket boosters on them." And he was right. They did. You couldn't keep up with it.
From midnight tonight, you will be allowed to remove your mask outside to drink alcohol.
There will be no removal of masks to consume alcohol outdoors. Police will be out in force and you will be stopped and you will be asked and you will need to demonstrate that you are lawfully out.
Dan was probably quite shocked with how much attention was suddenly focused on him. And so I think what we've really seen with Dan is the gradual progression of the negative outcome of misplaced attention. And he's really grown into his character being the sole focus of this health crisis rather than the crisis itself.
Whatever Daniel Andrew was doing in those press conferences last year was not about COVID.
I think he's a true believer in his own greatness and that it's his job to save us from the virus, not Parliament's, not the hospital system, his job.
In many ways, like he has that saviour complex. Daniel Andrews would have made a very good preacher because he's someone that, gets in front of the pedestal every day and he can preach the same message over and over, and before you know it, 14 days to flatten the curve becomes almost 20 months of lockdown madness with Daniel Andrews at the helm.
It was COVID zero at any price and in total secrecy. We couldn't see the science, the human rights assessments, or the exit strategy. So we get to COVID zero. Then what? Lock out the world forever? What's the exit plan? But all of a sudden, COVID zero fell apart.
At least 50 cases can be traced back to the quarantine hotels where security staff broke the rules. Now, the Premier has launched a formal inquiry to get to the bottom of exactly what happened.
So the main thing that came of it was the decision to use private security guards rather than ADF personnel.
Daniel Andrews reiterated his assertion he was unaware Defence Force help was on offer.
Were you aware about the proposition that ADF personnel might have been available?
No, I had quite the opposite view.
ADF officials asked whether Victorian authorities required assistance with its mandatory quarantine system on multiple occasions.
Daniel Andrews flat out lied to us. They used private security because they wanted to, and at an initial cost of $44 million.
Now, in theory, this may have been fine if the money that got allocated actually went to highly professional, well-paid security personnel. It didn't. A large chunk of the money disappeared in the contractor's pocket. These security personnel who did get hired in Melbourne were not exactly professionals, to say the least. There was one particularly notable incident where one played hide the sausage with a guest. So if you're talking about infectious disease training and management, that's kind of a failure.
With 800 dead, $44 million wasted, and Daniel Andrews' COVID zero dream shattered, an inquiry was held to find out who made the decision to use private security instead of accepting the offer of the ADF.
The reason why Daniel Andrews has announced an inquiry is so that he can hide behind that inquiry for the next couple of months.
The Premier's made a habit of not commenting on evidence before the Anti-Corruption Commission, and today was no exception. We did get a statement, just not from Daniel Andrews himself, a spokesperson for the government saying it would be inappropriate to comment as the inquiry is ongoing.
But the Premier joined a conga line of people unable to answer key questions about the use of private security.
Daniel Michael Andrews.
And you're the Premier of Victoria.
I am.
The last and arguably most anticipated witness to front the hotel quarantine inquiry.
No, I don't. I cannot recall that. I can't specifically recall. I can't provide you with detail as to why. I cannot recall that. No, I'm not aware of anything personally that would have. No, I don't believe. Although I can't speak to whether I did that. That is some time ago, and I've no recall of having a specific view one way or the other.
It is impossible to not have that paper trail for who is responsible for any given decision, in particular when you move money around. And I do not recall is not acceptable coming from those people that have those documents right there in front of them.
The way the media was kind of playing into it as well, in the sense of not really holding him accountable. He almost became the master manipulator of information and facts.
I can't believe for 1 minute that Dan Andrews does not know. Not for 1 minute. They all know.
Complete and utter liar. It is weak. It is a weak and gutless cop-out from a man who knows what he has done and refuses to accept any responsibility.
It just shows no respect for the people that have elected him. Absolutely none at all.
And we're meant to believe that no one knows who did what. And these are the people that come out and say, trust us, we got everything in control.
Daniel Andrews needed to get back in control, fast. Just a month after the hotel quarantine disaster, he had a perfect opportunity to reassert his authority.
In an unprecedented measure, 9 public housing towers have been locked down. Residents there now locked in their homes for at least 5 days.
A tongue-in-cheek call for help from those struggling to be heard, locked inside with zero notice.
Nobody allowed to leave, nobody allowed to enter.
There will be no reason for any of those residents to leave their home. The alternative is this gets right away from us, and we've got not just 12 postcodes locked down, but every postcode locked down.
That happened in a block of flats right next door to where I live. So I actually saw the police coming in, saw the cordons, heard noises from inside those flats, heard people crying. I was appalled. I was appalled because it was suddenly it seemed to me that we had almost like a military takeover, even then, that they could just do that. That frightened me.
It's even more horrific when you consider that many of these people who were locked in there were refugees, so people who had fled totalitarianism.
To look out your window and see armed men, people in uniform, and you can't even leave.
And I've spoken to some of these people, and it's an awful experience to be surrounded by police.
It's Australia. It's not supposed to be like that. Yeah, it's supposed to be free.
The Victorian Ombudsman found that human rights had been breached.
In a report released today, Ombudsman Deborah Glass was scathing.
It appears to me to be contrary to Victorian law, specifically the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act.
But there were no consequences, and the I Stand With Dan crowd loved it. They were laptop workers or on welfare, and Daddy Dan was protecting them from the Rona.
We make no apology for saving people's lives.
We were in the room and we had to make a very tough call, and we made it, and it saved lives.
Still, no science, no human rights assessments, no exit strategy, and no room for questions.
Still lack such confidence in your hotel quarantine systems and your contact tracing that you apparently can't manage 2 to 3 cases of COVID a day in a population of about 6.3 million people.
Well, you've made a number of assertions there, and...
Well, they're all facts, actually.
Well, no, they're not.
So why the need for lockdown?
Well, that's a very different question to the one that you asked at the beginning, where you contended that there were all sorts of confidence issues.
Well, I'm going based on that you said on the weekend that a lockdown was needed because contact tracers could not keep up, which would imply that you lack confidence.
No, that's not what it implies at all. That's not what it implies at all.
Stage 4 is here, our COVID hell far from over. Victoria is this very minute entering a state of disaster, and all of Melbourne will be under a strict curfew from 8 o'clock tonight as the way we shop and exercise is limited even further.
This is when the devastation started.
First of all, from 6 p.m. tonight, I am declaring a state of disaster. 1 hour of exercise, no further than 5 kilometres from your home. Recreational activity is now no longer. Third area of change for metropolitan Melbourne is that under those state of disaster provisions from 8 p.m. tonight, a curfew will be implemented.
It wasn't until the second lockdown, the big long one, the really harsh one, with the curfew, with the rules to leave home, that's when it actually really started to hurt.
People can't book holidays anymore. You can't make plans. You can't die because then no one can come to your funeral. You can't go across borders. So people stop planning their lives. And people wake up anxious every single day, not knowing what the almighty Premier is going to do to them that day. It's absolutely a tactic of psychological warfare.
He had all of the power. He could do anything that he wanted to do. There was no evidence to say that curfews were beneficial. If I recall correctly, he stated that it was Victoria Police that requested these curfews, and then I believe Victoria Police said that they didn't request the curfews.
Police then say, these are hard rules to enforce. We reckon there's a bunch of people that are out and they shouldn't be out. Give us the clearest, simplest set of rules you can.
Shane Patton is on the line. Chief Commissioner, good morning.
Morning, Neil.
Well, the curfew is the hot issue. Were police consulted about the introduction of a curfew?
No.
We saw very clearly that Daniel Andrews was making decisions just based on whatever he felt necessary.
So there's this locked circle where you feed people fear, then they trust you more, they're less likely to question you, and then of course any questioning of that authority is then taken as a direct assault on the illusion of safety that authority has been providing.
You know, these sorts of things never made any sense, and it's hard to get your heart behind to enforce them. But people were handing out fines left, right and centre if they saw somebody out after dark. If you're specifically tasked for COVID, you're expected to come back with results.
There were border closures between states, and a ring of steel was created around Melbourne, creating havoc in the lives of those who needed to travel for essential work or for hospital care or for anything.
While Melburnians are this morning living inside a ring of steel, facing $5,000 fines if they attempt to visit regional Victoria.
And it's going to cause chaos, confusion and even anger, particularly on those border towns.
I went to do stories in border towns where the science must have been different within 2 metres. That difference in 2 metres, that on one side of that fence, within the same country, on this side you could go to jail. Where on that side, COVID didn't send you to jail.
When you're living on a border town, Albury, Wodonga, Echuca, Moama, it's quite literally a 2-minute walk across the river to see your family. We could not do that.
Locked in our homes, cut off from family, friends, sports, church, community, people began to lose their minds. It was inhumane. You couldn't even visit dying relatives to say goodbye.
One particular instance, last year, a 20-year-old man was raised by his grandmother. He was not able to travel to go and see her. She passed away while he was still in northern Victoria and he wasn't able to go and see her. She was sick for about 6 weeks, passed away and died. And that was the only person he had in his life that he had any connection to. He didn't have anyone else. And so he decided he was going to go and join his name. The thing is, we can't save everyone. But what can change that is environment. And our state created an environment where this young man decided he no longer wanted to be here.
No one should sing the national anthem anymore because we are not one and free. I almost get tears thinking about that. To actually think that we are not one and free anymore. Yeah, maybe the borders will open and we can travel overseas, but we aren't going to be really free. And we're not really one anymore.
We became absolutely divided by the government. The government divided us, all the governments, from federal to state.
Well, with sweeping shutdowns, border closures and restrictions continuing across the country, there's no denying we're in the middle of an extremely trying time for business owners.
His approach is causing unnecessary devastation to virus-free communities.
He should be having that 3-tier outlook, not just a complete blanket. It's just absolutely ludicrous.
Businesses across the state will feel let down today off the back of a fourth lockdown.
Broadly, all you have to do is walk down the middle of Bourke Street, Melbourne, and you can see that the city is a shadow of its former self. It's in 18 months, Daniel Andrews has destroyed what was once this beautiful city called Melbourne.
There was no basis for him. It made no sense. There are businesses that were shut down for almost a year with those conditions. But you could go to the supermarket, no worries.
There's a lady I know who's got a kickboxing gym. Ruined, absolutely ruined.
Last week, her casual job at the MCG disappeared.
Dan Andrews can't just create a list of who can go to work and who cannot go to work.
There'll be hundreds of businesses across the state that have just been hanging on by a thread, and that thread will be cut today.
The hospitality industry, we seem to be getting shut down first and reopened last all the time.
We had constant closures and no answers about how it was even sustainable to operate.
They talked about, hibernation, we'll hibernate businesses. But, anyone that works in business knows that things don't work like that. One of the things that really annoyed me is people were saying, people care about money more than lives. But when you're talking about economic activity is people's lives.
We can't ease restrictions today in any profound way. I don't think anyone was expecting that, but it's simply not possible. From 11:59 p.m. on the 13th of September, we will have to extend out for 2 weeks.
Give us data, show us why. At least if we can see why and have an answer to why we're losing our businesses, why we're being pushed into corners and coerced. And it's not just taking away a business for me, it's just a job at the end of the day as far as I'm concerned, but it's way more than that for the whole community. One guy said to me about a year ago, he had contemplated suicide, and then he heard that this pub was coming to the town, and he's been there, he's got his own chair, he sits there most days, has a pint, Guinness, whatever. And he said that he literally said that the pub saved his life. Now, it sounds dramatic, but I believe him. I totally believe him. When this pub opened, that this is his place. It's a sanctuary for people. To have that taken away is criminal.
Some businesses tried to open. They hoped that if enough of them did it all at once, then they couldn't be stopped. There weren't enough.
I'm here on Poth Road in Hughesdale, where the owners of this barber say that they are opening their doors tomorrow, defying the lockdown restrictions inspired by Harry in Berwick.
Gyms in Melbourne, you've just got to open. You've got to just take the chance and do it, because look at us out here in regional Victoria. We haven't had a case in about 4 months.
Can you guys afford a $10,000 fine if Victoria Police rock up here when you open tomorrow?
Absolutely not.
It took Paul away, and at the time of filming this, Paul is in custody. We will update you on his story when we know more.
If their business is gone, they can't pay their bills, it'll hurt their family relationships, families will break down, and there's nothing left for these people to lose. But I think they were all shut down. They were just given a $10,000 fine and shut down.
Even churches that tried to open their doors and offer support to suffering people were shut down. Hard.
A pastor in Melbourne southeast faces serious charges after holding a church service.
While organising the gathering may open up Pastor Paul to incitement charges.
I was just simply asking a question, for what reason am I being moved on for? They decide to, assault me and take me to the ground.
A marathon police operation continues at Ripponlea tonight, where police are surrounding a synagogue.
All attendees are expected to be fined $5,452.
So this is the 7-time world's most livable city in 2020. No work, no school, no family, friends, sport, church. You're still not allowed to see the science. And you definitely can't protest.
Young mum arrested in her home over a Facebook post has accused Victoria Police of being heavy-handed.
You're under arrest in relation to incitement.
incitement.
What's that? Now, you're not obliged to say or do anything, but anything you say or do may be given evidence.
Excuse me, incitement for what? What on earth? Excuse me, what on earth?
Just put your phone down.
Can you, like,
in relation
record this?
to-
I'm in my pyjamas.
What's
I have
this?
an ultrasound in an hour. because I'm
pregnant.
That was the day that it confirmed to me that we weren't living in a liberal democracy anymore.
They had now made saying something on social media to be a crime.
A pregnant woman arrested in front of her children for simply creating an event or a post on social media was absolutely mortifying.
She was probably the first time the world realised something was wrong in Australia. Cuffed for making a Facebook post about gathering in a place that at the time had 0 cases.
The world was watching those scenes. The world was shocked that in Australia, a pregnant mother was being arrested for the crime of... What crime was it? There was no crime at that time, right? The crime was created to stop people from dissenting, and she was used as an example.
Let's be clear. Zoe lived outside of the Ring of Steel in regional Victoria, which means that what she was asking people to do was legal. Her crime was not encouraging people to go out. It was encouraging people to speak out.
I believe that was a temperature check. How would the public react to something like that? It was displayed all over the media.
It's gone worldwide. It went absolutely bonkers viral. I thought, this is the line.
That was actually one of the things that convinced me that I needed to protest. They wanted to crush resistance. Anybody who would disobey, anybody who would go on the streets to protest, needed to be stopped.
For context, protests had been ongoing since April 2020. I spoke at the first one, with just 70 people at a place called Trafalgar.
In Western democracies, the government is supposed to be the servant of the people, not a bully. Yet what we're seeing from Daniel Andrews now is bullying and intimidation, an unprecedented power grab, and all based on epidemiological models which have already been proven to be wrong. This virus will pass, but the massive debt and the unprecedented power grab that we have seen will affect Victorians and Australians for generations.
Since then, the protests had been on and off, mostly small, many shut down by the police before they really even started. But this time, after Zoe's arrest, things were different.
Leading up to the day, I think about 4 or 5 different people that were outwardly promoting the protest had their doors kicked in and were violently arrested.
You don't have authorisation to be on the property.
Hey, stop breaking the shit! Leave the shit! Whoa. Yeah, okay.
Well, it's hard to come up with any other conclusion that it's political. The police officers are supposed to protect human rights, not subvert them, not restrict them unnecessarily.
Despite the intimidation, the protest went ahead.
I went to that protest and I did a little bit of homework. I looked at the Crimes Act and saw what police procedures were, what had to happen. When I got there, I sat down and I had a little backpack with me, and right across away, maybe 30 metres away, I saw a group of policemen who were standing around. Nothing much was happening. People were skulking around in little groups. They looked at me and they didn't really look interested at all, and I thought that's good.
So we pretended to almost be, walking past, and then we noticed there was hundreds of people all with pretty much the same idea.
So I took out a sign out of my backpack and I hung it around my neck, and that sign said, "End the lockdown." Like honey to a bee, they immediately took notice and came over and started to ask me questions.
And then eventually a group was able to organise in the middle, and at that moment I said, I've got to join these people, and I walked in.
As we were approaching the shrine, I could hear the protesters. They were making noise. It sounded like a football game. But right ahead of me was a wall of 200 odd police, and the protest was on the other side. So without knowing what to do, we just kept walking and hoped we'd get through. And we didn't.
into a paddy wagon, and then off to the police station, where I was held for 5 hours, forcibly had my iris scans, palm scans, fingerprints taken, and held and threatened that I would be held there indefinitely and put in front of a magistrate.
They gave us fines, told us that if we didn't leave the area immediately, we'd be arrested. And knowing there was no chance we could walk through from there, and what would happen, we had to walk away. And I'm sure there was hundreds of other people on that day who did not make it either, and the same thing with most of the protests. They've blockaded roads, they've closed public transport, they've done everything possible to stop people going.
But that particular day, there were thousands of people, and they did manage to peacefully march at some points as well. So overall, I saw a mix of a peaceful protest and the beginnings of this more intensified police presence.
So for a good an hour, or I'd say about an hour, people were chanting and shouting and making our voice heard at the shrine.
Daniel Andrews is unworthy to lead a state that is built on the sacrifice of our ancestors. It's time to stand and let them know what we stand for.
I think it's so criminal what he's doing, shutting down Victoria the way he is and bullying us and fearing people every single day and then stroking our ego and patting us on the head. It's not okay.
And then someone got the idea that we were to quickly walk away, and then all of a sudden everyone had sort of followed this lead, and all of a sudden it turned into like a party, like a freedom party. There were people playing music, people were dancing and singing and talking again, and we'd been in lockdown for months leading up to this. This was the first time that I'd felt like I'd connected with people. With my people.
Finally, we had a crowd. But I had a feeling it wasn't going to end well, so after an hour of marching, some people, myself included, took our chance to leave. Eventually, there were only a few hundred diehards left.
And then all of a sudden, we see the cavalry arrive. Probably a good 100, armed, public order response police ready to break up the protests. And before we knew it, they had all been tackled to the ground and pinned down and arrested. And then at that point, there was more police than there were of us. And so what my first instinct was to run, and I had to just run across lanes of traffic, and just felt like pretty much running for my life from the police.
I just couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing, where you had cops dressed in full riot gear against peaceful protesters. And I saw them violently tackle people to the ground, and I thought, Melbourne? And, well, that day I ended up one of those sacrifices, I guess, to the Andrews government.
In a real sense, we had won that day. We staged our biggest protest despite the police presence, the arrests, the intimidation. But it came at a high cost, with pretty much all of the organisers now on bail and unable to organise another protest. But Melbourne is an amazing city, filled with amazing people. And without anyone asking, and knowing very well the risk they were taking, ordinary Melburnians stepped up.
We felt a duty, no more really than a duty, to do something and to continue growing the movement.
The protests couldn't be stopped just by arresting organisers anymore. There were too many of them. They'd become a hydra. If you cut off one head, two more grew back.
Protesters scattered within the Queen Victoria markets.
Protests in Melbourne have broken out on one of the city's biggest days of the year, but it's unrelated to the Melbourne Cup.
Cup Day 2020 was a shocking day for Melbourne. I think it needs to be written into the history books that was the day that freedom of speech died.
They surrounded everybody, a group of 500 or so people. And it was just a circle of police, which we'd seen before. It had never been a problem before. But this time was different. They had a new plan and they knew exactly what they were going to do.
Kettling, if you're not aware, is when police surround a group of people and force them into a sort of enclosed space and then process them one by one.
They actually got people who were keeping their distance, wearing masks, trying their best to keep to the CHO directions, and yet they formed a circle around them, closed in on them, physically pushed them.
And the police circle surrounding the protest just got smaller. They kept stepping forward a metre at a time, every minute or two.
There were elderly people there that were getting dehydrated, that were becoming unwell. We tried to call an ambulance for a couple of them. The ambulance wasn't allowed in.
Our water ran out, everybody's water ran out. And we were thirsty, we were compacted, we were hot. And then the arrest started.
Nothing wrong.
My partner, my parents, my nephew, my sister and her 6-year-old child is inside the circle.
Processing hundreds of fines. So if you go to the beach, okay, if you go to the shopping centre, there's no one there to enforce anything and you can do whatever you like. The government does not care if you spend money and if you go swimming and do leisurely things. But if you want to, if you want to challenge the government, if you want to say anything about them, they will use the full force of the police against you.
And this went on for 3 or 4 hours until every single person who was there had been arrested.
Everything that happened that day at the Cup Day protest was about setting an example. And I think that's why you had almost 500 arrests that day.
Cup Day proved it was not about health. As with the arrest of Zoe Bueller, it was about silencing us.
They didn't want people to unite. They didn't want awareness out there, and the protests, in my opinion, were bringing awareness. Anyone that was sitting at home, possibly questioning the narrative or questioning the decisions that Daniel Andrews was making, they were realising that they weren't alone and that their thoughts may not be that far-fetched.
I think that Daniel Andrews has an ego. I know best. I know what is best for you, and don't argue or disagree with me, because if you do, well, I'll have Victoria Police over here come after you.
It seemed like in order to save face, he needed to utilise the police force to intimidate us because there was no other way to stop us.
And as the police violence escalated, it just became clearer that it was going to keep escalating.
We saw that anyone that dissented, that had an opinion that was not in line with Daniel Andrews, Victoria Police was sent after them. You had Zoe Bueller. You had, I think, a 76-year-old man from Moorabark, and he was arrested and charged with incitement. A charge of incitement for political protesting. It's just absolutely unheard of in a Western democratic country as far as I'm concerned. Those charges are reserved for the most serious of incitement to cause physical harm to another human being. And these are people that were trying to coordinate peaceful protests to let the government know we don't like these draconian measures. We think that these draconian measures are not warranted. We believe that the way Victoria Police has been used is disproportionate. Listen to us. And they weren't. They were arrested instead.
Somebody that can't empathise with the most vulnerable in our community, I think that describes a narcissist.
If the health advice says that we need to have a curfew, that we need to be locked down, that funerals need to be stopped, that protests outdoors need to be stopped, why can't we see it? What does the health advice not say that? We don't know. We haven't seen it. And he's fought in the courts to avoid releasing it, and he's been successful. And to this day, we have not seen the health advice, and we may never see it.
Daniel Andrews didn't care about the toll his lockdowns were taking, or that other states and other countries were managing COVID without such extreme measures. According to him, he was doing a great job.
730's also obtained a confidential Victorian government report which shows a spike in the number of young people seeking emergency medical help for mental health conditions during and following lockdowns.
And that's at about 3,100 calls on average a day. If I take you back just 2 years, before COVID and before the bushfires, we were doing 2,400 calls nationally.
Just these weeks of lockdown have just ended up in months of lockdown, and now I'm seeing, and other GPs, we're seeing these kids who are just, again, they have no hope, they're depressed, some are self-harming and suicidal even.
I've buried 4 friends in 2 years from suicide. One of them's got twin 5-year-old girls who started school this year. Dad never got to see them go to school. I just wish that Daniel and his cronies could see what he's doing, what these lockdowns have done.
Even people taking, and young adults taking their own lives, as I know from my children's friends who did take their lives.
I've had 3-4 phone calls from respites or hospitals or psych wards. Aaron, your mum's in here again because she's lonely and she can't do it.
The lockdowns has affected migrant communities more, and the teenagers, these are the most affected population, and this is the future. The future of this state, the future of this country lies with our children that we have overhandedly tortured using the lockdown.
Some people, particularly the younger people, are not worldly enough to understand that things change and that we aren't always the arbiters of our own existence. And so they take it personally. They take it as a failing of their own self. That's why I personally know 4 people who are no longer with us.
I'm the first to admit that I'm no angel. In the past, I've made plenty of mistakes that I wish I hadn't made, but that's life. As a swim teacher, being able to work, full stop, there's nothing. I can't sit at home on a laptop and make money. I've got 4 kids, well 5 including my stepson. In September when my little man was born, I decided then and there I was going to quit the weed. My partner and I decided we were moving back to Melbourne to get the family support and just general support. 2 weeks after moving down, COVID, lockdown again. Being unable to work, not having my normal release of live sport, not being able to see my psychologist or any of my workers on face-to-face, it was all Zoom and stuff. It all just came crashing down and I had a major breakdown. And I sent a message to my drug counsellor, who's an amazing lady, like that woman. Yeah, she's an incredible lady. And all I said was, I'm sorry, goodbye, let my kids know it's not their fault, and sent the text message, not realising that I hadn't turned my location off. Within 5 minutes, my counsellor was at the train tracks where I was sitting as the express from Frankston and Stony Point was coming through. Literally, the horn had blown twice as I felt her rip me off the tracks. And yeah, I'm lucky I can tell my story, because like I said, I've got 4 friends that they can't tell theirs.
You know, my brother-in-law has lost a number of friends to suicide, and that's heartbreaking. And I think when you take someone's value away from them and you tell them that they're no good and they've got no outlook, then, sorry, Daniel Andrews, you've got blood on your hands. That's not okay.
But the I Stand With Dan crowd didn't care. Nothing was too crazy or costly if it was saving them from the dreaded Rona.
Playgrounds, basketball courts, skate parks and exercise equipment, despite the fact that it's outdoors, will be closed from 11:59pm tonight.
Deep clean for swings and slides as playgrounds become battlegrounds in the COVID fight, and out of bounds for kids and parents.
We've done this before. We know it's challenging, but we will do it again.
When I took my kids to the playground, when the playgrounds were closed, people stopped to berate me. Made it out like I was doing the wrong thing and that I was a bad person for doing it, but I'm not taking that away from my children. I will not do it.
I had grandchildren locked at home, not even being able to go to playgrounds. But what really made me angry was that they did it all in the name of old people. I'm an old person. I'm 73 years of age, and it really peed me off that they were saying we're doing this to protect the oldies. Well, the oldies didn't ask you to do that. I never asked for this, and none of my friends ever asked for this. We would never have asked that our children and our grandchildren be sacrificed for our health.
And to think that the only thing that they could think of was, let's just lock up the children as well and deny them of this very basic thing, which is just playing in a playground. So it goes to show you how much power concentrated in one man in these kind of decisions can impact, just children, just being children.
I'm proud to say that my son played at a playground nearly every day while they were closed. And as time passed, there were more and more other kids there with their families. But Dan still wasn't done.
Melbourne's Anzac Day March has been cancelled for the second year in a row because of COVID concerns. War veterans say the decision is premature and a kick in the guts.
If we can't march as a unit, we're not going to march at all. So I would assume that is a form of protest against the regulation that we're put under.
The stark contrast, 75,000 people given the green light to pack the MCG, with talks crowd capacity may increase.
Months out, the Premier actually says we're not going to have Anzac Day. Months out. Like, he can predict the future. 1 minute he was in a news conference and I can't tell you what we're doing next week, but he could predict that we weren't going to be allowed to celebrate Anzac Day.
Anzac Day is when we remember the sacrifices of our servicemen and women who died for our freedoms. Daniel Andrews cancelled it. Kind of symbolic, if you ask me.
The people who actually decided to go in, or the diggers that went there was cyclone fencing put around the shrine, and we had diggers sitting there trying to remove. So that was another point that you could see that the restrictions were ludicrous.
On the same day, there were 80,000 plus people at the football, but there was cyclone fencing around the shrine. But they still insisted that it was based on science and for our health.
The way political narratives tend to work is they pick a hill and they will die on it, for the most part. Now, you get examples of that in history. I did not have sex with that woman, all these things where once they're in their story, that's it. Now, for Australia, that turned into COVID zero. Now, when you hit COVID zero, which is obviously ridiculously unsustainable, you have to come up with an exit ticket. You can't keep doing it indefinitely. For us, that was the vaccine. We lost all level of reasonableness, proportionality, discourse, anything like that, and we went zero. And now we're going from zero to mandates.
Dan was trapped in his COVID zero narrative, and he'd finally realised it was not politically sustainable. High vaccination rates were essential so that he could change the narrative without political harm. But to achieve that, he had to crush any dissent.
From day one, their strategy has been to make people too afraid to protest. And if the threat of arrest, the threat of fines, the threat of jail is not enough, they will escalate further. They will bring in the threat that we will threaten your safety, we will hurt you.
There seems to have been a complete unwillingness from the police to negotiate with the people who wish to have their voices heard. To downplay, to dismiss the seriousness of people who were being told that they were no longer going to have a job or ability to earn, to provide basic necessities of life for themselves and their families. To suggest that if you wish to speak out against that, you'll be met with violence, to me is disgusting.
I wasn't surprised about the escalation because that is exactly what had been happening the entire year leading up to this. Every time we had a successful protest, they would change tactics, or they would up the ante, so to speak, and then make it more difficult. So maybe the next one wouldn't succeed, and we would have to look at their tactics and then up our own tactics or get smarter, and then we would have a successful protest. And this went on and on and on. And then, as we managed to have like a bat rally, I think there was a good 10,000 people when Matthew Lawson was shot. And we were sort of waiting, what are they going to do next? Because they need to break this up, because if they don't, we're going to have 100,000 people here next week.
I was there that day when the guns came out. They had these weapons. They were pepper ball guns.
I just heard someone from the back of, from behind me saying, they've got a gun. They're shooting rubber bullets. They're shooting.
What is that? Fucking car!
Oh, I didn't understand at the time that rubber bullets could do that much harm. I learnt later they can actually kill, and I saw the bruises on some people's bodies.
As horrible as it was to see, it was not surprising. I feel like those who had been to the protests and those who had monitored them closely over a course of 12 months wouldn't have been surprised to see that happen because all of the flags were there.
Predictably, the I Stand With Dan crowd loved it. But what about the police themselves?
Go home. Otherwise, they start issuing tickets. We don't want to do it, but we will do it, right?
Well, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Stand up for what you believe in rather than paycheck.
Just go home, all right? We get paid to do this, mate. I'm just as over this fucking protest as you are. By protest, I mean lockdown, all right?
Fair enough,
unfortunately,
fair enough.
I've got to do what I've got to do. And
You
that's why
don't
I'm
have to do
talk
that.
to you.
You don't have to do that. You're choosing to do it for
I'm
a
not
paycheck.
skilled to do anything else, mate. So unfortunately,
Mate,
at this time of my life, that's what I have to
and
do.
the people of us that aren't skilled, we don't get paid. We're not getting food at the moment.
I hear you, mate. My wife's in the same position. She's out of a job at the moment as well. I understand you're being pissed off about it.
How perfect, how Machiavellian. To have police and people fighting in the streets, both there because they're afraid they won't be able to feed their families. Credit where it's due, that is genius. And Daniel Andrews used Victoria Police in more ways than one.
The only way that they could neutralise people that were outspoken and active and showing any form of leadership in this space was to hit them with bail conditions. It was their trump card to be able to neutralise us and make us fear for our future.
You want to turn that off? Yeah, I'll turn it off. Hang on. Let me turn it off.
Let's get a cover anyway.
112,
It's absolutely soul-crushing to know and see and bear witness to his video that police were so readily willing to disregard justice, to put somebody on bail, to stop them from politically dissenting. So I think it's disgraceful.
I've just been pulled over by the cops, probably because I'm outside of my 5Ks, but we'll see what happens. So I just thought I'd put the live stream on just in case.
Hello, Monica.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good, you?
We're just from the Springvale Police Station.
Sure.
At the moment, we need to have a chat to you about a matter of incitement, so I need to place you under arrest for that, okay?
Pardon?
At the moment, you're under arrest for incitement.
Have you guys been following me?
You do not have to say or do anything, but anything you say to you may record and give evidence. Do you understand that? Do you understand that, Monica?
No comment.
I was charged with inciting people to break the Cho directions, okay? There was two bail conditions that said Monica cannot incite opposition to the Cho directions. And then the other one was Monica must delete all past posts that incite opposition. My whole website incites opposition. I was the vice president of a political party at the time. My job was to oppose the government. The original bail conditions, they even wanted to close down my bank accounts.
And to think that she was targeted in this manner and then given these really what I would say is just disgusting bail conditions to silence people, right? The fact that Monica then took the step to actually say, no, I'm not going to be subject to these conditions, put me in jail, lock me up.
I was in solitary confinement for 22 days, no sunshine, no breeze, nothing. I didn't have a TV for the first 12 days or books.
We should not have political prisoners in Australia. And to think that the government, to think that Victoria Police think that this is a way to effectively shut down dissent against the government is disturbing.
The worst thing is the strip searching. I mean, you can't unremember the strip searching, you know. And I was bringing Australians together, and it scared them.
Monica wasn't the first to stand against insane bail conditions and be imprisoned for it, but she was the most high profile. But arrests, imprisonment, rubber bullets, we still didn't stop.
Seriously, I'm making a serious point. I don't know what half of them were protesting against.
You?
Well,
a lot of them.
Then, well, good on them.
Word on the street was that there were going to be over 2,000 police, riot squad, rubber bullets, pepperball guns, the works.
Outspotted one
A lot happened that day. There were two groups of protesters and we were trying to meet up with each other, but the police kept cutting us off. In my group, we got tracked by hundreds, if not over 1,000 police at one point. Then we got out when someone opened a gate and we escaped through a housing estate. We were constantly marching away from the police because we weren't looking for a fight. But they chased us because they were. After an hour and a half of cat and mouse, a small number of police managed to trap us in a canyon.
We had police coming from one way, swinging batons and spraying everyone, and we had police overhead spraying pepper spray down. So it was raining OC spray everywhere, and in that moment it was terrifying. I felt like we weren't going to get out.
We just wanted to exercise our human right to protest. And we tried so hard to avoid confrontation, but the police had chased us and created one. Some of the men near the front had had enough.
There was a brave and strong group of people at the front, and in that moment they pushed forward and they ran forward and they broke the police line, and I honestly don't know what would have happened if those people didn't do that.
We were pepper sprayed and struck with batons as we charged through, and some police were knocked over and injured, and that's regrettable. I don't wish harm to anyone, not even them. But if you're going to abuse our human rights and pick a fight with the people of Melbourne, don't be surprised when you lose. As we burst through the police lines at the front and regained our freedom, unbeknownst to us, there was an old lady at the back who just couldn't keep up. She couldn't keep running. So she turned to the police and tried to hand herself in.
Trojans are flying!
This incident involving an elderly woman will be investigated by Police Professional Standards Command.
To see an elderly lady knocked to the ground and pepper sprayed and then left there, that's not okay.
These guys can beat up an old woman and still go to work the next day. It's just not right.
And then what is mostly supposed to be used to protect police who are enforcing the law from someone dangerous coming at them, the OC spray, they decided to put it straight into her eye and just spray it all over her face. And yeah, just horrible.
Within minutes, the images went viral and the world was shocked. But minutes later, a conspiracy theory emerged claiming that it was actually a man in his 30s.
There's a 70-year-old grandmother out there. Why don't you go and rip her to the ground and bash her?
Did you actually see what happened? There was actually a male with a wig on. That was a 36-year-old male.
Stop for a second and imagine thinking that that's okay. It's okay because the police only assaulted a man in his 30s. In reality, it was a woman in her 70s. She'd been wearing a wig out of fear of being identified. This was now an information war. The media ignored or twisted everything, and the I Stand With Dan mob were now inventing conspiracy theories and sending them viral. But thanks to social media and people like Avi and Rukshan, we could tell the world the truth. Daniel Andrews was desperate to shut us all down.
What's this?
Hi, Avi. My name's Alex. I'm from Dandenong Police Station. Just got a letter here for you.
Hey, guys.
The Assistant Commissioner. Just in relation to the protest tomorrow, mate.
That's for you from Assistant Commissioner. It's literally just to tell you about tomorrow. Obviously, you're planning a protest.
So do you have a reason for attending this protest?
Yeah, because it's a human rights violation that we're locked in our houses. The hypocrisy was rank. The police were happy to shoot at us with rubber bullets, but if we shot them with a camera, they came for us. But it was now that the information war kicked off in earnest.
Well, all authorised workers in Victoria must be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 within weeks. That's under a controversial order issued yesterday by Premier Daniel Andrews.
They will need to have their second dose and be fully vaccinated by the 26th of November. I'm not looking to exempt anyone. I think I'm in the business of encouraging and where necessary through orders signed by the Chief Health Officer mandating people getting vaccinated.
Daniel Andrews still didn't have his politically acceptable narrative out of COVID zero. He needed more people to get vaccinated, and that meant far-reaching vaccine mandates.
Last year, mandatory vaccines was a conspiracy theory. What we wouldn't have accepted last year, now we accept, and now is normal.
It's not choice. You either do what we tell you to do, or you stay in your house where you've been for 2 years.
They're not allowed to work. They're not allowed in theatres. They're not allowed in the pub. And people are okay with that. As long as they're getting what they want out of their life, the fact that some people aren't, they don't seem to mind. And that is really sad.
Or they try to play it down and say, yes, you can choose, but if you make this choice, you can't participate in society. Your kid can't play sport. If you make this choice, your kid can't go to school. That's not much of a choice. That is coercion.
Your ability to move around and engage in economic and social activity is dependent on medical procedures dictated by the state. This is a horrifying and chilling dystopian vision.
Those who have and those who haven't have different liberties allowed to them, as if it's the government's role to give us our liberty.
It's drummed in this from we're born, not to discriminate. The fact that we have to discriminate now, it makes me nearly physically sick. I can't even do it. We're still shut. I just can't bring myself to do that.
What we're looking at is the two-tiered society. Those that can and those that won't, not those who can't. And those who won't are the ones who are actually free.
For the first time, vaccine mandates affected the construction industry. They'd been relatively untouched by lockdowns or mandates. Until now.
Mandatory vaccination of the construction sector is a decision of the Chief Health Officer, and it is essential.
Tradies, they're critical thinkers as well as hard workers. They talk about the world, they talk about what's going on. And so for the tradies to stand up and decide that something was wrong with this, that the hardworking men weren't willing to offer up their arms and get on with it, that was amazing for Victoria and a huge tipping point.
We met up at the CFMU headquarters and just demanded for Shetka to clearly and express that he was against mandatory vaccinations.
The majority of the people that were there had just walked off sites in the area and walked down to the protest from the city. So a lot of construction sites around the city, they had finished up for the day, tools down, and they had come to the protest.
And the membership was fully against it, but it was obvious that the leadership of the union was in the pocket of the government.
I think it's been hijacked by a few of these extreme organisations who've got nothing better to do than just carry on and have protests.
When we heard that, he did go on radio and he did trash talk the workers or us. That was really, I would say, the trigger where people said, well, that's enough. People just felt betrayed and I would say very angry at that point.
Don't
Don't call me a scab. I've done jail for this union, all right? I've stood on picket lines.
Union boss John Setka urged protesters to calm down, denying the union backs mandatory vaccines and suggesting not everyone in the crowd was a union member. That just enraged the workers more.
Half these people, if they were out of work for a week, they'd be crawling back on their hands and knees for a job. They haven't made any sacrifices at all, and they're not really unionists. They're just the scum of the earth, as far as I'm concerned.
On the news that night, and the statements by the government saying, trying to change reality. So, saying that this was organised by some right-wing extremists and that they were Nazi man babies and stuff like this. They were clearly tradies, and they started this fake tradies hashtag, and they got all the activists in to try and control the narrative and say that these people weren't really construction workers, they weren't really union members.
Now, the Chief Commissioner could speak to the makeup of that crowd. I think there were some people there who you would say were from the building industry. There were others who were not from the building industry. They're not there to protest, they're there for a fight. They're there to pretend to be protesting.
It was quite bizarre, and I'm glad I went down there just so I could witness it with my own eyes, because maybe I would have got sucked in by the narrative as well, I don't know. But people like Rukshan had disrupted the government's narrative, because what the government didn't realise that evening until later that week is that tens of thousands of people had been watching this live from a first-person point of view from his camera, and they saw the same things I did.
So no, they were not baby neo-Nazis as they were framed by politicians and the media. They were actually hard-working construction workers and tradespeople from our city that were facing a very tough choice about their future.
Not only were they angry about the mandates, now they were angry about being betrayed by the leadership and smeared as Nazis. This kicked off the most intense period of protests to date, as CFMEU workers staged daily protests despite intensifying police violence.
The biggest mark you can make, I guess, would be to do something big like march across the Westgate Bridge, and also as a symbol of unions and union members that built the bridge. It was a symbol of standing up for what was right.
Dan Andrews knew he had the CFMEU leadership in his pocket, but he had to deal with the unruly membership because they were making him look weak. So the next morning, he issued a chilling threat.
This sort of behaviour is unlawful, it's ugly, it will not be tolerated.
So if you're thinking about coming into the city today, just know that Victoria Police will deploy whatever tactics they need to in order to ensure that you are held accountable.
In addition to that, stinger grenades which deploy rubber pellets. These crowd control equipment, munitions were necessary, and they are necessary.
The government had no choice but to step it up another level as well. And that's where we saw the introduction of armoured vehicles such as the Bearcat and specialised militarised operatives coming in to neutralise these crowds and make examples of them.
Coming up, Ollie, if we can, that's the Bearcat. This is the heavily fortified police vehicle. You can see an armed officer.
When you see this, the anti-terrorism tactics deployed against members of the public who are weaponless, who haven't planned anything, who have just turned out to protest, it shows you that things had actually escalated to the next level. So the kettling failed, all their tactics previously had failed, and the only response that the police command could think of was, hey, let's send in a bigger gun.
These were unarmed people.
There must have been orders from someone, we're going to shut this down, and they just brought in all the tools, all the toys that they had.
Well, it's in the name. These are tools and these are trained personnel that are supposed to deal with terrorists, and they're being used against their own people who are voicing dissent against this government. So they have turned people with a political idea into terrorists.
terrorism. The unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Violence and intimidation against civilians for political aims? If Daniel Andrews is looking for a terrorist, he should look in the mirror.
And then they were pushed down the centre of Swanston Street that turns into St Kilda Road, and the police kind of like moved them that way at a shrine of remembrance.
These protesters are there fighting for our freedoms, and a big part of the Shrine of Remembrance is to honour the fallen who fought for our freedoms overseas. It's a sad indictment on the fact that we have to protest in our own country for our own freedoms that existed before COVID-19.
And it wasn't our desire to come back here, but when they started using the anti-terror squad and driving the Bearcat through the streets of Melbourne, labelling people who are simply political opponents of the government, labelling them as terrorists, well, unfortunately, we were left with very little choice but to appeal to our history, to appeal to our ancestors, to appeal to the freedoms that they fought for, that we inherited, and right now we are letting slip away in our generation. And I won't stand for that, neither will all the people here.
It's all okay till it comes to you, when what you believe.
Endless coronavirus restriction measures have taken a heavy toll on each of our lives.
Sense the lies, the more they shame, the more you hide. They say you're all alone, confined to your home. Another lie to their bone. We found our kind, watching the bullets fly.
Last time I was too scared that I'd get arrested, and this time I thought, fuck them, I don't care.
It's not okay. It's not okay. This country is being pummeled.
We'll fight till we die. You can take our time, you can smear our name, but you won't take our pride.
Children were caught in the crossfire. This is a crime against humanity when police officers can spray us illegally with pepper spray.
It has been an absolute embarrassment for the state, for the police, that once again, when they promised us thousands were not going to be able to march on these streets, well, they have.
What do you do? He won. Daniel Andrews won. We are a disarmed population with a government willing to shoot at us to ensure our obedience. And if we kept going, someone was going to get killed.
you have the choice of, do we keep protesting and do we end up with someone getting killed? You know, that would be a heavy responsibility to bear.
Thursday dawned, and we all waited anxiously to see if anyone was crazy enough to go toe-to-toe with the anti-terror squad again. We all sat at home and watched Rukshan and Avi's pages to see if they were live streaming. The silence was deafening. It was over. We lost. But then something happened that none of us expected.
Healthcare workers have gathered to protest against mandatory vaccinations.
We start with breaking news, and police in Melbourne have started pulling over truckies taking part in an anti-vaccination protest. Dozens of protesters lined a St Kilda dining strip this afternoon to demonstrate against rules banning unvaccinated people from entering venues and shops.
It was wonderful. It was great to see a lot of different groups, people coming from different organisations, from different backgrounds, forming not just their own protests, but their own movements.
They just stood in a park. They were social distance. They were wearing masks, doing all the right things, and they received almost no media coverage. It was not spoken about because it showed that they were regular people, regular workers, nurses, school teachers, young women.
But I thought the teachers and the nurses showed bravery, but it was just ordinary Australians, professionals, that disagreed with what was happening.
People that knew the truth and that knew that the rights that they stood for had to be protected. So it was great to see.
I think I already mentioned it, but Melbourne is an amazing city and filled with amazing people. And without anyone asking, and knowing very well the risks they were taking, ordinary Melburnians just stepped up. I've never been more proud of my city than I was that day. That was the day when I decided I had to make this documentary because this was a story that had to be told. Welcome to another Slow Chat. My name's Topher Field. I don't have a guest this week. I have something very exciting that I want to be telling you all about. That as of today, I've gone official. It is official. I am working on my first ever feature documentary. Then they came for me. I'm sure it was only a coincidence that they came for me 1 week after I announced that I was making Battleground Melbourne. Pure coincidence, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, mate, how are you? G'day.
Hey, I'm Josh from the Gurney Police Station, mate. We're here today to arrest you for incitement.
Hey guys, police here to take me down to the station. We'll see what the bail conditions are. That's really what's going to set the tone for what happens from here going forward. I'd been expecting it, and I'd prepared for the worst in case they did to me what they did to Monica. But I think she'd kind of taught them a lesson, and they didn't want to make the same mistake again. In the end, the officers I dealt with were lovely. And as I said to them in the car, they were the nicest human rights abusers I'd ever met. I was home with the family later the same day with minimal bail conditions and 2 charges of incitement scheduled for court in January 2022. But then came the silver lining. Thanks to Victoria Police and the publicity from the arrest, just 2 days later, I'd crowdfunded the budget for this documentary. But Dan was getting ready to make his boldest move yet.
Daniel Andrews is pushing for sweeping new pandemic laws that include fines of up to $90,000 and 2-year jail terms.
And we need specific laws, just as we promised, that will protect us and keep us safe.
Daniel Andrews wanted to make his emergency powers permanent and give himself new powers, the like of which have never been seen in Australia before.
This legislation enshrines complete power over the lives of 6.5 million Victorians with no checks and balances at all. It is akin to the Enabling Act of 1933.
I'm extremely concerned at the vast powers that this new pandemic bill will give an authoritarian premier who, in my opinion, lacks compassion.
You'll be on a subscription service, effectively, to your rights, which I think is totally unacceptable. And, they've signalled that that's what they want to do. They've spoken about it openly, and they need these powers to do it.
It's a bit of a nerve for me in that it reminds me of something that used to happen back home, in that people were able to be arrested for no reason, held with no charge. It was called internment. And that led to a bit of a kick-off for the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And that sort of behaviour, again, is a total breach of human rights. That scares the life out of me, that one.
And it's not just conspiracy theorists who are raising the alarm. Victorian Bar Association President Christopher Blandon QC said that the Stasi would be happy with these powers, and 60 QCs called the powers unlimited and practically unreviewable. So to those who insist that there's nothing wrong with these laws, I have a question. What do you know about the law that the Victorian Bar Association and 60 QCs do not?
To be jailed on one man's whim or fined at large on one man's whim is actually terrifying, and I'm not sure people quite grasp how serious that is.
He can imprison whoever he wants, for whatever reason, and I know for a fact I'm pretty high up on that list. So I have to go into hiding. I have to go into hiding because my government might arrest me because they don't need a reason to arrest me anymore.
He's already used Victoria Police as the long arm of the government to shut down political dissenters. I can only imagine how he would use that in a new bill that actually gives him wide sweeping views to discriminate.
In 2021, we're talking about classifying humans into separate classes, which is unfathomable that we're even thinking along those lines.
One man is about to have the power to destroy us all, and that's the reality of the situation.
So we braced ourselves for a final showdown. More protests, more police violence, and who knows what was going to happen. But something quite unexpected happened that completely changed everything. A news article appeared in which Victoria Police asked the government to facilitate protest, to stop the violence. Now, I need to go back a little bit and give some context because former Victoria Police Commissioner Kel Glare had slammed Victoria Police months earlier in a damning interview with Discernible.
But there is certainly a perception that VicPol is becoming increasingly a political arm of our government.
Yeah, I think that's probably right, because I strongly suspect, like the curfew, that not based on health advice at all. In my mind, have a government that's inept. We had over 800 deaths because of their inability to consult the people that knew how to deal with a pandemic.
Then Sergeant Crystal Mitchell was the first serving member to quit publicly.
The consequences of me being here today is that I will be resigning from Victoria Police effective the end of this interview.
I lost all interest in doing my job because I just thought, why? Why am I here working for an organisation that claims to serve the community and I'm seeing anything but? I was ashamed of the organisation.
Slowly, more officers began to speak out and more began to quit.
And by the end, it wasn't just fines, it was violence. And I guess that's what got me to the point where I just said, I can see that no one is going to step in and end this. So I had to say something. I just couldn't stay silent anymore.
More followed, not enough, but it was the beginning of a change in the air.
I know a number of officers who proudly wear the moniker of not having issued one single COVID ticket for the entire pandemic. And that's their way, I guess, of trying to work within the system and be a part of a system that they don't want to be a part of right now.
The police know that their reputation was very, very tarnished. And they know that they need a community relationship with the public if they're to be an effective police force moving forward.
So when this article appeared, some said it was PR, some said it was too little too late. But we all saw it as an opportunity.
Well, what I accept and what I have always defended and been a very strong supporter of, Carl, is people's right to protest.
Finally, at the 11th hour, as Dan was about to give himself these insane powers, we could show our true numbers without fear.
We found our kind, watching the
centre, and the amount of fear that put into your heart.
You can take our time, you can smear our name, but you won't.
I am pro-vaccine, but I'm also pro-medical consent.
It was not Daniel Andrews that made Melbourne the world's most livable city. It was us. We've done it before and we'll do it again.
We will not comply. We are the lines. We will fight till we take all we own. You can smear our name, but you won't take our pride. We will not comply. We are the lines. We will fight till we
Servicemen, former policemen have sworn an oath to Australia to stand up against those that are oppressing us again today. Fight for our freedom.
The protests were incredible. Hundreds of thousands of people on the streets, not to mention a hardcore group that camped on the steps of Parliament for weeks. Meanwhile, the battle over the legislation raged inside Parliament for 3 long days.
What we don't want is the government to have the power to have a two-tiered society where people are excluded from society. We don't want the government to have the power to force businesses to sack people based on their medical status. We don't want the government to have the power to lock people in their homes for months on end. And we don't want the government to suppress protests and open fire on people. This is what we've seen over the last 20 months, and this is what we don't want.
Finally, it came time to vote.
After weeks of bitter political debate and protest, the Premier has won the battle over his controversial pandemic legislation.
Daniel Andrews won. Now what? More than 100,000 Victorians have left the state since Daniel Andrews turned us into the most locked down city in the world. Is that it? Do we all just leave?
Have I ever thought about leaving? Absolutely. I won't be. This is my home, I'm not getting chased out of it by some dickhead. But more than that, a problem doesn't solve itself because you run away from it. I have lived in other places in Australia and I've lived overseas, and I think this is the best place in the world. And I think it's a place that's worth staying and fighting for.
If we don't stand up and reclaim our power as the citizens of a democratic country and a democratic state, then we are failing in the worst possible way our children.
So I believe that in the end, it doesn't matter where you move. If this is successful in Victoria, then it's coming to you, whatever state you're in Australia, and whatever country you're in. So there's no running away from this. We have to fight it.
Let's team up, let's end this shit once and for all, let's throw this clown out of office. Let's get our state back, let's get our city back. Let's become the most livable city again. We can do it.
If everybody who is against Daniel Andrews, who understands his hunger for power, who understands where this state is going, leave, who's going to fight for this state? So I made a point that I'm not leaving. I'll be the last one to leave. I'll fight till the end, until this state goes back to what it used to be. The first, the most livable city in the world.
think I already mentioned, but Melbourne is an amazing city, filled with amazing people. And without anyone asking, because of the danger we're facing, ordinary Melburnians are stepping up. Since Daniel Andrews got his powers, the protests haven't stopped. In fact, they've spread. From Parliament House to Government House to police headquarters to Bendigo, Ballarat, Shepherd and Albury, and too many more to mention. Daniel Andrews turned us from the world's most livable city to the world's most locked down, and gave himself powers that have no place in a democratic country. He made Melbourne a battleground, and he took from us the city that we love. Now, it's our turn to take it back.
Damage done will leave a bigger stain. And now you shout it from the rooftops, 'cause there's never been a safer place. Set the cameras on the wreckage, keep the pressure on the message, keep the faith. What you feel and you believe. Rise up. All the trusted many who deceive. legislate emotion when the unison has spoken. Let them breathe. And if they choose to bring the battle, it's just a cage that they can rattle. Let it be. It just proves the disconnection. Judgment days and election. Make them see. Make them see.
Sorry, mate.
Mate, can I give you a hug? Thank you for everything you've done. And